Apostle Paul is doing is telling us, giving to us, presenting to us the gospel. Paul always divides his epistles into two parts. And in the first part, he gives us the gospel. The gospel is a message not about you, not about your behavior, not about what you ought to do, but it's about Jesus and what He's done for you. That's what the gospel is. It's a message about Jesus and His redemptive work, which is on our behalf. And so when you read the first part of Paul's epistles, you generally don't find very much about us. We don't find very much about instruction on how to live or what to do. It's about Jesus and what He's done for us. And Paul does it that way on purpose because as we live and as we live our Christian lives, we walk in the light of what He's already done for us. It's not as though we're trying to do something for Him and hope that He's happy with that. He's already done something for us, and we just walk in the light of that. And that's what's so beautiful about the Christian life. We're not trying to get God's favor. He's already given us His favor. We're not trying to do something for Him. He's already done something for us, and we're just walking in the light of it. And that way it's Him working in our lives. So Paul spends, and that's what's remarkable in Romans, he spends 8 whole chapters talking about really nothing else but what Jesus has done for us through His redemptive work on the cross. And the 8th chapter is the culmination of that, and he's bringing it all to a conclusion. So I'd like to start today with verse 26. Verse 26 says, "Likewise the Spirit also helpeth our infirmities. For we know not what we should pray for as we ought, but the Spirit itself makes intercession for us with groanings which cannot be uttered. And He that searches the hearts knows what is the mind of the Spirit, because He makes intercession for the saints according to the will of God." Now in verse 26, when he says, "Likewise the Spirit helps our infirmities," and infirmity is weakness. And the specific infirmity and weakness that he's talking about, if you read the previous verses, he's talking about the fact that we are at the present time as Christians, our spirits and the inside, our hearts are changed, our spirits are in union with Christ, but we're living in a body made of flesh. We're living it's as though we're in a cocoon, sort of. We've got life on the inside, but we're living in a body that is not yet transformed. Now we're told, and Paul tells us this, that when Jesus returns at the second coming of Christ, that we will be transformed in a twinkling, in a moment, in a twinkling of an eye, he says. And in Philippians he says, He will change our bodies. He calls them, in King James, our vile bodies, or in other words, carnal. He'll change our bodies to be fashioned after His glorious body. Now, I think all of us can say, and we can testify in our own lives, that has not happened yet. We have weaknesses in our bodies. And not just physical things, but as long as you're in a body of flesh, you've got all kinds of potential pitfalls and potential things that can go wrong, and you can say things wrong and you can do things wrong. It's not just the physical things that, like we get attacked with symptoms and sickness and disease and those kinds of things. It's also the fact that we're prone and we have the potentiality to do things wrong. And as Christians, because we have His life on the inside, we feel bad about that. And Paul says, but the Spirit comes to help us in our weakness. He helps us in our infirmities. Did you know that God knows us better than we know ourselves? We feel bad sometimes when we make a mistake or do something wrong, but it's because we're in a body of flesh that happens. I guarantee you, when you've left this life and you're in heaven, as we were talking a moment ago, talking to Jesus face to face, you're not going to have any of those problems. You're not going to have any, when your spirit is in heaven, you don't have those problems in your spirit. Your spirit's not the problem. It's the flesh that's the problem. It's the flesh that we have to deal with and we have difficulties with. And as Christians, we sometimes privately, secretly groan about that. And he says here, but the Spirit helps us. The Spirit helps us in our infirmities. For we don't even know what to pray for as we ought. Isn't that remarkable? He says we don't even know how to pray about it. We don't even know how to pray for this, the fact that he says these infirmities that we're dealing with. We don't know how to pray as we ought, but the Spirit knows. You see, he says the Spirit, the Holy Spirit, he means. The Holy Spirit Himself makes intercession for us with groanings that cannot be uttered. The idea is that He, when it says here, He helpeth, this word helpeth in verse 26 is a remarkable word. It's amazing what you can find out when you look in the concordance or look in a Greek dictionary. This text is written in the Greek language, and this little word helpeth, it doesn't seem like very much at the very beginning. Likewise, the Spirit helpeth. If you look in a concordance, in Strong's Concordance, it's a big, long Greek word. It's a 3-part compound word. Sun anti-lombano is what the word is. And I'm probably not pronouncing that right, but it's 3 parts. Anti, you know what that means. That means against. And lambano means to take hold of. And the son means alongside or with. And what it literally means is the Spirit takes hold with us against our infirmities. He comes alongside to help us. It's like if you were struggling with something and then somebody came along and said, let me help you with that. And you find out, wow, they're a lot stronger than I am. They, like you're struggling to lift something. They come along and just lift it right up. He comes along to help us. He comes alongside to join with us. And it says, what does he say here? He helps our infirmities, for we don't know how to pray as we ought, but the Spirit himself makes an intercession for us with groanings that cannot be uttered. I like what the Message says. Could you give me the Message for a moment, Anton? Meanwhile, the moment we get tired and waiting, God's Spirit is right alongside. You see, that's the thought. He comes alongside with us. He joins to us. Right alongside, helping us along. If we don't know how or what to pray, it doesn't matter. He does our praying in and for us. In and for us. Making prayer out of our wordless sighs and our aching groans. That's an interesting thought. He is so intimately concerned with us and so intimately aware of what's going on in our lives. The very things that we don't even know how to express in words, He understands and He knows how to interpret that as a prayer. Okay, if I go back to the King James, let's go ahead with verse 27. It says, He that searches the hearts. You see, sometimes we get the wrong idea about it. We think about God searching our hearts and we get afraid. Oh no, He's going to find out what I'm really like. He already knows what we're really like. He already knows all of our weaknesses. That's what He's saying here. He knows our weaknesses and He's sympathetic with us. He's not against us, He's for us. That's what we're going to find out here in just a moment. He searches our hearts and He knows what's the mind of the Spirit. And He makes intercession for us. An intercession or an intercessor is someone who comes alongside and joins with, who helps, who takes the place of and takes your case, in other words. He makes intercession for the saints according to the will of God. You see, he says we don't even know how to pray as we ought, and we certainly don't always know what the perfect will of God is, but the Holy Spirit does know. Okay, in verse 28. With that in mind, now we can understand verse 28. And we know that all things work together for good to them that love God, to them that are called according to His purpose. Now, the them He's talking about is us. And the things that He's talking about that are working together for good are not everything in life in general, but everything that He's doing for us is for our good. He's working for our good. Now, sometimes people take this verse out of its context and make it say something that it doesn't say and get a kind of a que sera, sera attitude, if you know what I mean by that. There was this movie with Doris Day, and she sang this song, que sera, sera, whatever will be, kind of a fatalistic attitude. It's not that God is out here in nature and in life controlling like a puppet master everything that happens in your life. Listen, there's a lot of forces at work that are not God. Did you know that? And I can prove that to you. Here's how I prove it. I say, have you ever, you personally, you know about your own life, have you ever done anything wrong? And nobody's yet told me, no, I haven't. Everybody says, well, yes, I have. So when you did something wrong, was that God that made you do it, or was it just you that did it? Well, I think if we're honest, we know it wasn't God that made us do it. Why would God make us do something wrong? He's out to help us do what's right. So if we do something wrong, it's not God that did it. Now, if we can understand that when we do something wrong, it's not God that did it, you have to also understand that other people can also do something wrong. And not only that, but there are other forces at work in nature that are not God. What God is out to do is to do good things. James said it this way, do not err, my beloved brethren. Every good gift and every perfect gift comes down from the Father of lights. So I say any good and perfect thing, you can say that's from God. God does every good and perfect thing. But listen to this. We know that in all things work together for good. We're reading English, and it's translated out of Greek. And sometimes things don't make a perfect word-for-word translation from one language to the next. I have here a commentary on Romans by Martin Luther, and I've read this. It's very good. I've had this for years. And Luther, this is written 500 years ago, and this man was very bright. He was knowledgeable. He could read the Greek language, and he could read Hebrew. And when he was teaching this commentary on Romans is the transcript or the notes of his teaching it to his students. And he, here at this point, reads from the Greek, and I'm not going to try to read that to you because I don't know Greek. That's why I depend on somebody like him. And he gives a direct word-for-word translation. First, he gives the Greek phrase, and here's how he says it in the order that the Greek presents it. Listen to this and see if you can tell what the difference is. In all things, God works together with us for good. Now, can you see what the difference is? In all things, God works together with us. It's not that God is controlling everything that happens, but everything that happens, He's with us. He works in all things with us for good.